Welcome back to Lady Open Podcast. This is your host, Charna Cassell. And today's guest is Kennedy Ryon. She's a beautiful musician from Atlanta, a child prodigy. And she is someone I met through Instagram. I loved her music and I reached out. I randomly said, "Hey, if you're ever passing through Oakland, I would love to host you and do a garden concert with you." And she ended up writing back right away saying, "Actually, I am passing through town. And what I would love to do is actually do a listening party." So we ended up creating a dinner party and a listening party for 13 of her fans, a little intimate gathering. And it was a really sweet opportunity to hear her music and get to know her and her awesome team. And so this conversation is an exploration of what it's like to be a musician, the self-doubt that can arise, as she's breaking through, how listening back to the music you've already created and what you've put out into the world. How do you surrender, accept yourself and not try to control people's experience of you and your art?
Learn how to live embodied. Your life is about to unwind. Uncover new tools and start healing. Leave trauma and tension behind. Isn't it great laid open? Let all your desires come true. How can you live laid open? Imagine yourself brand new. Imagine yourself brand new.
Welcome, Kennedy. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. It's good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
What have you been up to since the listening party that I hosted and the dinner party that we had?
Mainly still being at home, helping around the house, creating new music, trying to branch into different genres, i.e. rock, going back to my roots, which is reggae, Bob Marley. Mainly just creating, trying to stay in the creative world and write and keep my pen sharp. I just had a show that I did. I got to sing 2 soundtracks for a show called Expats. Shameless plug right here, by the way. I wasn't even planning on mentioning this, but here we are.
It's good because I probably would have asked about it. I'm so glad you're mentioning it. I haven't gotten to see it yet, but that's awesome.
Thank you. That's what's going on right now. Trying to build around that. But I had the opportunity to be able to sing 2 soundtracks for the show Expats, which premiered on Amazon this month. And so right now I'm kind of in a space where I'm going back and just collecting memories from that experience. I'm still in a space where it's hard for me to, no, backtrack. It's not hard for me to listen to myself sing. I'm just really, really critical.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of have the mindset around listening to myself sing something, whether it be a week ago, a year ago, 6 months ago. And I want to be able to be I didn't like that note. And I get frustrated with myself because I'm no, you should have sang it like this. So I'm in a space where I'm processing, 1, the opportunity that was at hand, and 2, just being grateful about it and not operating from a place of perfection about how I sound, and just watching my specific episode for what it is and trying to remind myself this is not about me. This was the opportunity specifically for this show. So you got to let go of your perfections and perfections and just let it be and listen to it because it's something to learn from, basically. Not to get off on it. Yeah, sure. But
No, I get
yeah, that's
it.
where I'm at right now, which is just trying to just trust the process just a little bit more and not be so perfect about it. It's not even trying to be perfect. It's just ugh, I can't even explain it.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. Once something's out there can sometimes be a feeling of a subtle flavor of powerlessness. Oh, I can't control people's experience while they're digesting this or taking it in. and I
Mhm.
wish I could go back, and maybe there's some regret of like, oh, if I could have done this differently,
Mhm.
and how to surrender
Mhm.
and trust how someone's going to receive something and be like, they're going to
Yeah.
get what they need to get, and I gave what I needed to give.
That's what I'm trying to like just take from it and just release control because
Mhm.
I am going back into a space of like, oh, when we recorded this, like, I remember this take and I remember how this take sounded. And this isn't the take that I was like, I wanted in this, but it's just exactly what you said of like, okay, the take that I envisioned for it, it's not my decision. I didn't have control over that, which goes back to again, this show is not about me. This moment is not about me. I might have been handpicked for this moment for a reason, but the emotion that I envisioned for it may not be the emotion that was needed for the scene, which is why this take was chosen. But also going back to what you said and remembering like people are going to take from that whatever they need to take. So if I don't necessarily feel like all of my emotion was in the take that was chosen, somebody else is going to hear that and be like, like I saw a comment where somebody was like, I watched this with my mom and we were both bawling. And I was like, okay, well, this is confirmation. You need to like stop criticizing yourself of how you sounded. And even if you feel you sounded like this, and I'm struggling with not having control over the sound or the take,
Mhm.
the emotion and the feeling is still there. And I tell myself 24/7 in music and what I create, it has to have a feeling and it has to have emotion.
Mm.
So that's still in there. So I need to just like, I need to let it be. So that's what I'm
Mhm.
literally in the moment, like trying to do. Just let it be, let it roll off my shoulders. It's the first project. There'll be many more.
That's right. And it's amazing. So many things every day are an opportunity to practice something, right?
Mhm.
And so you're in let it go boot camp, so to speak, right? Because
Yeah.
you're putting yourself out there, and the more that you put yourself out there, the less control you have. And
Yeah.
it's a vulnerable and a courageous thing to engage in, to be in the public eye and to put your heart and your art out
Mhm.
to be heard and received. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so for you, in you just said, you a little bit about like what you want to convey when you sing something. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, what motivates you to create music, to write songs? Like what's one of the hopes that you have, or some of the hopes that you have?
Really, when I create, my goal for myself first is to just like heal, just to feel something, to like create a feeling and a healing, one for self first. And then if I decide to be vulnerable and then put out the music or the song that I'm creating and someone else receives that,
Hmm.
shoot, even better. But it's for me first and really for me to just have a place where I can express myself with without judgment of others, but without judgment of self first, because I'm really creating the environment for me. And really the hope is just kind of just to create, just allow myself to flourish and create something where I don't have, it's not compressed, it's not controlled. It's just to continue like reminding myself, like, this is what you do. You're supposed to be doing this. Just do it to do it. Like, no one's holding a gun to your head telling you have to do it this way. You have to sound this way. Like, just do it. It really also is just a space of being able to decompress. It's like the first thing I go to, whether I'm going to create something or whether I'm going to listen to something, but mainly just to, I don't know, feel something otherworldly. It's like, or not, I guess, like weird as that may sound, but just to like find a different healing or like a different meaning. Cause it's like, if I make a song and I instantly I'm like, get the chills. I'm like, oh, okay. I just healed something in here that I don't even know about yet.
That what you just said, I know that feeling. It's
Yeah.
it's so I write, and when I do for years, since in my 20s I've had a timed writing practice. And
Mhm.
so when I write and I don't pick up my pen and I just keep going, it's
Yeah.
you access your subconscious, right? So you don't even necessarily remember what you've written. But
Mhm.
then when you're reading it and you know you've written something that lands, it
Mhm.
resonates, you get
Mhm.
those shivers, right? Those
Mhm.
those tingles. And I
Mhm.
actually connect that with it happens sometimes when I speak something to a client or to a friend. It's like spirit is present,
Mhm.
is is
Mhm.
is what it feels like to me, where it's like
Mhm. It's like basically just like you said, your subconscious is speaking for you. Like it's almost like a out of body experience,
Mhm.
but it's you that's speaking or like you that's doing the writing. You'll understand it. Like I know you understand it, but it's just like a song that I created recently. It unlocks something that you weren't able to tap into, almost like an itch that you couldn't scratch. Because a song that I just like created recently, I just wrote it in like 10 minutes and I was like, all right, shit.
Mhm, mhm. It's so funny that specifically using that expression, the itch that you couldn't scratch.
Mhm.
I was working out earlier today, and there's this particular machine that's like, if you imagine, wooden planks that move separately, that
Mhm.
you could put your hands on and they slide and they have some tension on them. So there's some like, there's some strength building as well. But what
Mhm.
it does is it's unlocking the back of my heart and the back of my ribs. So these particular places that what happens with trauma is there's the trauma gets stored energetically. It
Yeah.
creates tension in the fascia. So this
Mhm.
whole area is just like imagine it like an earthquake occurring, like a positive earthquake where it's starting to shake these up. And so I call it scrubbing, as I
Mhm.
move these little platforms back and forth, it is like an itch that I couldn't scratch. That's what I was thinking of this morning, where it's suddenly I can feel my shoulder blades moving in a new way because there's
Mhm.
little pieces of trauma that are like separating and breaking and crumbling out. And
They're like disintegrating almost. It's
exactly.
almost like opening up your heart chakra, basically.
Well, and accessing, like what you're saying, you can do it through scribbling, writing,
Mhm.
right? You can do it through physical movement. You can do it through working at the tissue, but there's
Mhm.
some kind of unlocking of something that's been stored or stagnant that hasn't had access. And then suddenly there's movement.
Mhm.
That's an exciting space to be in.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. What's your writing? Do you write daily? Like what's your process for writing?
I can't say I write daily because there are definitely days where I'm intentional about like, all right, I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to listen to my mind. And if I'm not feeling creative and I feel like I need to rest, then I'm just going to like, I'm going to be sedentary and I could choose to be sedentary. And then like 3 o'clock could hit and then I'll have like a list of ideas and I'll be like, well, now I feel like I want to create, but really my process when it comes to like writing music, I either like to take myself back to a place or I'll just like listen to different beats or different sounds or different instruments and just wait until something like just clicks, like something like feels good, like it unlocks something. It unlocks an emotion. It unlocks like a feeling, like a beat could just be like boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, nah, that doesn't hear anything. But then if it's like a beat and then percussion and then bass, then I'm like, okay, what does this feel like?
Mm.
What do I want to write about? What do I want to talk about? But even before really I try to ask myself what I want to write or talk about, I ask myself like, what does this instrument or what did this sound make me feel like? Does this feel sad? Does this feel happy? Does this feel um like I want to dance? Does this feel like I want to lay in bed? Does this feel like basically just feeling first? Once I understand and unlock the feeling, it's so hard to say because the process looks different each time.
Well, you're allowing there's a theme so far in some of what we've talked about that's about acceptance, right?
Mhm.
It's like listening to that song that, is playing nationally
Mm.
and going, okay, can I accept all of myself? The part that recorded that song back then, even though I might do it differently today, can I accept
Mhm.
myself? And can I
Mhm.
just be with what's happening and what I'm feeling right now as it
Mhm.
arises, what I'm feeling now versus trying to control what I'm producing,
Mhm.
right?
Mm. That's real. That really is what I'm trying to do with like the expat show because I found myself in a space of like wanting to control, not necessarily like wanting to control or being anxious about not being able to control the track or the stems that were used for it. And I'm like, okay, instead of being hyper focused on, I felt like this should have been used here, this should have been used there. I realized this was my best vocal. I wish that was put in. Instead of being hyper focused on that, I need to like just sit with how I'm feeling, which is anxious, which is maybe like disappointed in self. Maybe like nervous because now the take that I envisioned for it isn't in there. So I'm afraid that the viewer may not be able to feel what they need to feel, or the viewer might be like, this is Kennedy? I don't know that. I've heard her at her best. But even like that aside, I was really getting to a place of like, I know what my best is, and what I heard didn't sound like my best. So instead of getting in a place where I'm like beating myself up about not sounding my best, getting in a place of being anxious because I didn't get to choose which stem was on it, I have to be like, all right, this is how I feel. I feel this way because of X, Y, and Z. I can't go back and change it. I can't go back and record these vocals. I can't go into Amazon headquarters and be like, yo, like this, I feel like this was, I can't do that. I just have to sit with how I'm feeling, acknowledge it, and then just let it be. And the shit is hard, especially given how like much of a, I hate saying the word perfectionist, just how much I am like intentional about like my art or about like vocals or how it feels and how it sounds sonically. That's something that's like hard to sit with right now, but I just have to, just going back to it, like if people are getting what they need to get from it, great. It was an experience and it's one to learn from, and I just have to let it rock. Like I can't go back and change that, but I know the next opportunity that I have with Amazon or maybe with FX or with Netflix, I know now like what to take into that experience and how I can be better, and like what I can apply from the Amazon experience into this one to get the results that I guess I envision for myself. Not in like it sounds selfish, but in a way where I can, I guess, be more proud of the result, I guess, or not even be more proud, but just be more, like you said, be more accepting of the result.
Yeah. You didn't say this, but I'm curious about, sometimes there can be the fear that we're not going to be fully understood.
I have trouble with that all the time.
Yeah, because I heard you say, oh, but, or disappointing people. Like people might listen and be like, that doesn't sound like Kennedy. She can do better. And just, trusting that the people are taking in this moment, but then also everything else that they know about us and what we give or bring to the world, rather than we're not reduced to this one moment or one song.
I think that's what I'm putting myself through, is like,
Mm-hmm.
you have many more opportunities that you will be able to do, like for shows and for movies. This isn't the only one. So I have to learn to like better not be hard on myself. And I know that just comes from just childhood experiences. And again, going back to like not being understood, that comes from like not being listened to enough, not being heard enough, not being taken seriously enough. So then that's where it comes up of like, people are going to be disappointed that this doesn't sound how I normally sound. And it's like, no, there's still going to be people that love it. And at the end of the day, I have to love it for self first. I can't rely on other people to love it. I have to love it. I have to like it. And not even that. Even if I don't love it, I don't have to like it. I just have to like learn to accept it. Like, okay, this was the experience. It may not sound how you needed to sound, but you just got to take that shit on the back and just like let it be, honestly.
Well, and can it be good enough? Right.
Yeah, but I'm always trying to be like, my mindset too that I have to like be better about when it comes to creating is, I don't know, it's a blessing and a curse. I'm learning. A lot of people are telling me, and a lot of like other people in the music industry are telling me it's a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
Like even when it comes to mixes and masterings of songs, like I have a song that I'm about to put out next, and I'm like, this doesn't sound like this. This doesn't sound like that. I have to have people on my team remind me like, it's not going to sound exactly how you want it to sound. It's not going to sound exactly perfect. It can sound almost perfect, but my mindset is always like, say I put out Baby Mama Drama and then I listen to it and I'm like, my mindset then is like, that was good, but it could be better. It could be like, I made Baby Mama Drama and the song that comes out after that has to be even better. There's no in between. That's like always my mindset.
Yeah.
And it definitely is a blessing and a curse.
Well, there's just a little bit of pressure in there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The pressure comes from self. It doesn't,
Right.
very rarely comes from, it never comes from anyone else. It just comes from me all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you said it already, but when we grow up in environments that feel out of our control, we can become humans who want to maintain control and have control, and perfectionism is one way that can look, right?
Yeah.
And so in a certain way, it's a strategy that gets rewarded in our culture versus a different strategy for, trying to control things. But what I'm hearing is it's not just like you have a song you wrote about being in an abusive relationship. And so it's not just writing about topics that you're processing through and you're healing through, but it's the whole experience itself that's also healing, right?
Yeah.
And a practice that you're in.
Yeah, because I want to make sure I just unlock each rung of that. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to write about this experience and my past relationship, am I like really writing from a place of like true healing? Am I really writing from a place of true intention? Did I really say what I needed to say? Because once I make this song, I'm not going back to it. Once I record it and I sing it, like, and we go, okay, that was that take. This is the one I want to use. I'm not going back to it. I'm going to be like, all right, like, what's the next beat we can create? And then I'm going to write to the next one. And then it just comes from a place of like being vulnerable. And I think that's another thing, going back to like the whole Amazon thing, or not even Amazon, just like the next song that I'm putting out. Struggling to not ask what everybody else thinks. And by everybody else, I'm constantly asking like what people on my team thinks. And this next song, I'm saying the N-word a shit ton. So I'm like, I don't know, just a little nervous of how that might be portrayed. But I think it just goes back to like the fear of like being perceived. It's like, okay, if I say the N-word in the song too much, are people going to think I'm like, all I say is the N-word? Or are people going to think I'm ignorant because this is the type of song that I'm putting out? But then I have to go back and remind myself, this is my art. This is my message. This is how I felt when I made this record. This is how I felt when I was going through it. So all I'm doing is getting it out. And once it's out, that's it. I don't know. But I'm also someone that overthinks a shit ton. And I like annoy myself on a daily basis with how much I overthink. But yeah, I just have to remind myself it's my record. It's my story to tell. And I have to consistently remind myself it's for me first, and then it's for you. However you perceive the song, as however you perceive it. It's going to be perceived based off of your experience or based off of your observation of someone else's experience around you. So you're either going to connect with it on the same level or frequency as me, or you're going to connect with it on your frequency on your level. But the message is my message, and I have to not be so strong-holded on what people think, I guess.
Well, and what's hard is the reality is you can't please everybody, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you make, I know you like to cook. I like to cook. Like you make dinner for 15 people. It could be delicious, but not everybody eats chicken, right?
There still could be one person that's like,
right.
14 out of the 15 people could be like, girl, this chicken buzz. Like, this was good. How you make this? And the 15th person could be like, It didn't do what it needed to do. It was all right though. And I have to be okay with that because I'm so just in a space currently. I don't even want to claim that. I used to be in a space.
Yes.
I'm gonna start talking like that. I
Mhm.
used to be in a space where um I was just really concerned with how other people would feel. Like I wanted to make sure everybody would feel it how I felt it, but I can't control that. And I have to understand too, my music is not going to be for everybody, and my core audience will continue to find me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Along the lines of um, what you write about,
Yeah.
are there, have you noticed? I mean, and sometimes these things become songs and sometimes they don't. It might be a lot of journaling, but
Mhm.
have you noticed reoccurring themes in your
Mm,
writing and in your songwriting?
I think um definitely for like the first album, the theme was reoccurring in the sense of like it was an album touching on my previous abusive relationship.
Mhm.
So the theme of that, I I don't even know if I even called it a theme. It was really just a thing of like, this is what I made, this is what I wrote, this is what I wrote. And it all just kind of happened to be coupled of like, all right, well, I'm gonna talk about my ex abusive partner and how he made me feel and how that looked like, what that felt like. And I think now the things that I'm creating, they're just different. The theme or the writing looks different. Like the other day, I created a reggae record and it didn't have anything to do with my past abusive relationship. It didn't have anything to do with a romantic relationship at all. It just had to do with, um, now I'm trying to think. It just had to do with like growth and wanting to grow as a person, but not being able to grow because the people that you have around you keep you stuck in this constant mindset of you can't grow because I'm not going to grow and I'm surely not going to allow you to grow.
Mhm.
Um, and then another record I could create would just be about a love song. So I feel like the themes look different. I'm also trying to get my reps in right now of reminding myself that I can create any style of music that I want to create. I can
Mhm.
write about anything that I want to write about and just visualizing other artists, studying other artists. There are definitely artists who say if they're an R&B artist, R&B for them works like all the way through. That's all they create.
Mm.
Not a bad thing, not a bad thing at all. Some people are like actual, this is gonna sound so terrible and my intention behind it is not bad, but I just got to preface it with that because that's just how I rock. Um, some people are only one trick ponies when it comes to music. Some
Mhm.
people only know how to create music in the style of R&B and it has the same melody, it has the same cadence,
Mm.
and they write about the same exact thing. And for a lot of people, that works because it's familiar. And in the music industry, what's familiar sells.
Mhm.
It's been known. But for me, I don't want to and I don't like to put myself in just one specific box. Um, Mainly because I want to remind myself that I'm capable of creating whatever style of music I want. I don't have to just stay in this box. I think also just from studying other artists and just studying the music industry in general, which I understand this is just how the music industry always is, it has to work that way. Um, if I'm signed to if I ever am signed to a label and I start out making like R&B music
Mhm.
and then the label's like, you need to make rock music, then I guess I better be ready to create rock and I better be practicing it right now if that were to happen. I don't know. I enjoy being an independent artist
Mhm.
and it definitely is less stressful than having to work with a label. Um, but I just enjoy different genres, and just reminding myself again that I'm not stuck in one box.
Yeah.
And I think in the beginning of my artistry, I definitely was scared that I only could create from a place of like pain and could only create from a place of like talking about my past abusive relationship. And then after doing that, I'm like, nope, I can create whatever I want. But that just comes from like a stuck mindset at that time of convincing myself like I can only create from this space. So right now I'm just reminding myself and not allowing that mindset to like seep in or become stuck, and just remind myself like, you've been doing this since you were in elementary school. You used to sing and write about freaking, I don't know, frogs at a pond and going fishing. If you can sing about frogs and going fishing, you damn sure can sing about it's snowing outside right now and that you don't like it being cold. But I also have to remind myself, and it just goes back in the process of I've been doing it so long, I already know what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
the only limit that I create in music is the one that I have for myself. And right now that's non-existent.
Yeah, that piece about just being able to trust yourself, trust that you know what you're doing, and trust that people are going to get what they need to get, and
Mhm.
trust that if not, it does this song, because you say the N word, doesn't land for everybody.
Yeah.
That's okay, because the next one is going to land differently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely a hard one too. In my Atlanta, I did a show at Eddie's Attic, and it was the first time I did a show and the space was predominantly white people. And I was like, bruh, a couple of these songs are
Maybe
like
not.
ah, not white people friendly. I'm about to say the N word so many times in here. And I was more concerned with how other people would feel about me saying this versus me just enjoying the moment for self. And I remember, I think I was just scared that I would like, I don't know, hurt somebody's feelings because I said the N word. And I remember seeing like one woman was in the front row, like right in front of me. And I said it a couple times. And she was like, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And then there was like
Yeah.
probably like a 55-year-old white man in like khaki shorts and a plaid button down. And he was just grinning from ear to ear recording me. And I'm like, all right, like you're worried about nothing. Like, again, the message is it's going to hit who it needs to hit. It does not matter. That's probably like the main thing I really have to get over is just believing in my artistry past not being able to control if other people feel what they need to feel from it.
Yeah. Well, that piece, I mean, it's one of the things that it's everyone needs reminding about that. My clients, my friends,
Mhm,
myself, we
mhm,
don't get to control our environment or the people in it,
mhm,
period. We just
mhm.
don't. We get to work on developing more internal peace and spaciousness, and that's pretty much life, right?
Yeah.
Um, and and then when you're specifically producing something to put out into the world, it's yeah, you want to have more control. And that's really my practice this year as well. It's like I really love collaboration. It's a love language for me. And
Mhm.
how do you collaborate and elicit co-leadership rather than having to lead and control everything? Because a lot of creative beauty comes in the space of rest.
Mhm.
Like I really liked what you said earlier in terms of yeah, no, I don't have a daily writing practice because sometimes I just need to rest. And when you accept and allow what is, then
Yeah.
the writing or the art can come out sideways, right? It's a
Mhm.
byproduct of the rest
Mhm.
versus the forcing of um, that level of continuity. Yeah.
I agree because I can definitely tell the difference when I'm like forcing myself to create music or forcing myself to write a song versus I'm good about if we in the studio and I'm writing, if I'm in the studio by myself or I'm in the studio with Swanky and I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting anything right now. Like we're going to have to continue this tomorrow. I'm
Mm.
glad I'm good about that and glad that I have a team of people who are like, you know what, that's fine. So I feel like I've definitely been in studio sessions before with a different team of people where it didn't look like that. It looked like you need to write, and you need to get it right the first time. And if you're not able to write this song in like 30 minutes, then you're not even an artist. Like what are you doing? And then through more research, you learn some of the greatest people who have made hits, it took them a week. So whenever I get in spaces where I feel like not necessarily I can't create something, or that I don't have the capacity to fully write to this right now, it doesn't mean that I don't know how to. It doesn't mean that I don't have it. It just means that I'm honoring, like, you don't have it right now. And if you just sit with that and not force it, the next time you come back to the song, it's just going to come out like water.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the process looks like water, and sometimes it looks like it's just a dripping faucet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, and in terms of when you're in a very stressed or traumatized state, like one of the things that a byproduct of trauma is often, it's, well, I'm going to correct myself, because sometimes people create a lot from that place, and other times
Mm-hmm.
it can interrupt the capacity to
Mm-hmm.
imagine,
Mm-hmm.
right, and to be creative. And so often in the process of healing, creativity can flow back in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can reemerge. And I know for myself, if I've been in an urgent place, like I lost an 80-page chapter in a book, it disappeared and was replaced by asterisks, the whole entire chapter. And it was a painful chapter to write. And I was having a panic attack, and my friend was like, how about let's go for a walk? And I was like, I can't. I mean, this is like years ago, and I see the value now, but still, I was like, I can't go for a walk. I was like
Right.
freaking out, right? And the reality is that space of stepping away, and actually coming back into a regulated space, taking care of your nervous system, then
Mm-hmm.
allows creativity or what's next to be reestablished. You were saying that you get into your head a lot, you
Mm-hmm.
overthink things. Like that's one of the things that gets in your way. What are
Mm-hmm.
some of the resources? What are some of the things that who are the people, or what are the activities that resource you?
Really, if I ever get into a space where I'm like getting into my head, and I think we all as artists, and if artists say that they never get into a place of like doubt, like at least just once, every once in a while, you're lying. It's gonna come about because, one, being in music is very vulnerable, and two, especially when you're in an industry that's big, it's like gonna happen. But I think if ever I get into a space where I'm like doubting, or I get into my head, or I may be overthinking a song too much, or overthinking the process too much,
Mm-hmm.
I might go for a walk, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I might just put the pen down for a second. I might like pause the song, pause what I'm working on, and listening to something that I know will bring about inspiration for me. It could be like making my own song, and in the middle of me like making it, just saying, I could be like, "Oh, I don't know about this song. I'm not liking this." And then just be like, well, nothing's coming about. And then I could turn on like Amy Winehouse or Bob Marley and feel like sonically that inspiration, like sonically like that push, or I can feel like um their excitement that they had in creating the song, or like their self-belief. It's just like a feeling in the music, like a vibration. It just makes you like want to get up, makes you want to go like do the laundry, makes you want to wash the dishes, makes you want to like wash your hair, something like that. So I might just listen to something or watch something that is encouraging or brings about a feeling of like, no, you can do this. But sometimes a lot of time I'm watching like documentaries or like YouTube shorts about other artists who might struggle with the same thing. Try to watch people who deal with the same thing, even at that same caliber of like, okay, this clearly is a great, and a great deals with the same exact thing. How do they get through it? So I like to take the advice, or just listen to other people. Okay, I just talk to my therapist, or I just sit with it. I realize like me being this famous is not that normal, or it's the same as like I take my artistry very seriously. But sometimes it might just look like meditating, turning on a meditation that involves affirmations and just saying the affirmations to myself over and over again. And then even if I say the affirmations and I may not feel any more like the push to go back to creating, I might just sit with the affirmation, sit with big upping myself, and then starting it again tomorrow.
And how about when you were a kiddo? Like, I know for me, making art and writing were really big resources. It was it was actually, it's like in terms of brain waves, when you're meditating or when you're creating art or in a creative zone, you produce alpha brain waves, right? So
Yeah.
it's really calm state of mind. And a lot of alpha also anesthetizes you to a chaotic environment. So I know that I was in that state a lot as a kid. And so I'm curious. I mean, it's great that because you really named, it sounds like you've got a great community and you've got people that you can draw from and talk to. And so what about when you were a kid? Like what were you, who were, or what were your resources?
I didn't have that as a kid. I was like my only resource. And that is a major reason why I picked up music in the first place is it was like an escape. I can't control my environment. I can't control not having enough food on the table. I can't control mom and dad arguing all the time. I can't control this like chaos and trauma that surrounds me. What can I control? Making a song, listening to a song, picking up this instrument and creating something. But I didn't have that like push as a child. I didn't have that reassurance as a child. And if I did, it felt very transactional. And that's something that I'm still figuring out, like to this day, it's still understanding. But it's definitely why I got started in music in the first place as an escape. Or even then, like I would just read books.
Totally. Oh my God. There's still a feeling. It's really interesting. I was in grad school to be a psychotherapist, and mostly we were reading like theory books. And then this one child therapy class, we got to read novels, and it'd been a while since I just read pleasure books. And I was reading this Barbara Kingsolver novel, and the feeling that came over my body, and my mom had been a heroin addict. I have not ever tried heroin. But when I read, there is a quality of like just like melting into the bed and just feeling expansive and soft and melty, that just when I'm in love with a book I'm reading. And being a trauma therapist, I can observe that experience and go like, oh wow, this is why I brought a trunk of books to camp with me. Like, books for me were such an escape and such a resource, and they soothed my nervous system like nothing else.
Yeah, when I was a kid in my what is it? I think it was 5th grade. In my 5th grade class, Miss Ditmars, that was the best teacher. That lady was like my mom. She was literally like my mom. I was like obsessed at the time with the Berenstain Bears. I think it was the Berenstain Bears. Yeah, I was obsessed at the time with the Berenstain Bears books. And she had like a shelf. You know how like they have those little, what's it called? Them little ceramic shelves. They're like light brown or whatever, like taupe or something at like the libraries. She had one of those in the classroom, and it was just stacked and stacked and stacked with books. And once I discovered the Berenstain Bears books and just how they made me feel, and of course, like the Berenstain Bears, like it's just about like family and the lessons that come with the books, and just the love that came with the books, the nurturing that they had for one another, that the parents had for their children. It's like I just became engulfed in that, and it was just like an escape from not having that as a child. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then I remember I would just like take a book here home, take a book here home. And then one day eventually I just took all of the books home. And I remember, I think I was supposed to like tell her, like, if you have to like ask for the book, like I would read them in class, but it got to a point where I was just like, this is just so good. And I know my mom and dad are not going to buy me these books. So I took them. Just a child, not thinking, I didn't think it was anything bad. And then took them home. And I remember one day I came back to class and I put all the books back on the shelf, and she saw me putting them on the shelf. She's like, Kennedy. And she sat me down and she was like, I'm so proud of you. And I love that you're enjoying reading. I'm glad that you want to read. But she was just like, if you want to take a book home, all you had to do was ask. And just having that was like, I'll never forget that experience. I'll never forget her as a teacher and just what she taught me at that time when I needed that. And just them books in general. Like I was just obsessed. Back then I was obsessed with reading. I'm not able to like completely read now and just like focus. I'm trying to get into a space. I think now as an adult, reading for me is intimidating. Well, like being like struggling to focus. So now what I try to do is just listen to an audiobook and read it at the same time, which helps until I can get to a place where I don't need the audiobook and I can just read it and like be able to just focus in on that because I have like a issue with like reading the same line over and over again.
Yeah. Well, granted, even if you're someone who is a huge reader as a kid, the
Mm-hmm.
way with internet and social media and our attention spans are so reduced, it makes it hard for anyone to read. And then you add trauma. Like a lot of the time, ADHD is
Yeah.
actually a trauma response. It's like I have to be vigilant and tracking everything, which
Mm-hmm.
makes it hard to focus,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I love that that's a creative way to approach that, to
Mm-hmm.
combine the audiobook with the reading. But
Mm-hmm.
so in that I hear that there's reading, there's making music, but there was also this teacher. And that also for me, like school was my happy place to a certain degree because
Yeah.
teachers were validating for me and they were
Mm-hmm.
present with me, unlike at home, and it
Yeah.
made a huge difference. And so I just, yeah, a big, a, you know, big hug out there for all the teachers that make such a huge difference in kids' lives and create a safe
Especially during
space.
COVID because they was holding it down,
Oh my God. You don't
holding
even
it
know.
down.
Yeah, seriously. So many, yeah, my teacher clients were going through it. That was a lot. That was a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm glad that they had you as a therapist and that they had therapy as a resource because a lot didn't. And I know
I know.
COVID alone was shit because parents weren't doing anything. Parents were tired. Curriculums were not doing what they needed to do. So I gotta throw that out there because if
Yeah.
that's how my teacher, damn, I don't even know if I should say her name. Might have to chop that out. I don't know if she might want her name in here.
Yeah.
But
No. She's probably, I mean, gosh, if she's listening, do you know how moved she would be? My mom was a special ed teacher for 30 years. And so bumping into your students 20 years later and knowing you've made a difference, that's an amazing thing. So she's probably moved if she's listening.
so she knows what I'm doing now. She had
Yeah.
randomly hit me up on Facebook, I think last year and was like, I'm so proud of you. And I
Oh,
always knew. And I'm like,
yeah.
which that was wild too. She was like everybody's favorite teacher in
Mm.
2013, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2013 when I'd gone into like the mental hospital for the first time. I don't remember how she found that I was in the mental hospital. I hadn't seen her since I was in 5th grade. She came to visit me in the mental hospital. I had no idea. And I'm like, girl, what are you doing here? That woman was an angel. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, she clearly had a lot of love for you and care for you and wanted to show you that and knew you were worth showing that too. So I'm glad you had her. Really glad.
Thank you too.
That's so important. Yeah. So we're going to need to wrap up soon, although like in typical Charna fashion, I write a zillion questions and then I go unloading and I ask what I want to ask.
It's okay. I do the same thing.
Yeah, I love, I think that over preparing, it like lets the little warrior inside of us get grounded and hold a space, a bigger structure that we can then roam around in.
I think that makes it more authentic because instead
Yeah.
of sometimes reading from a script, you're asking questions that,
Yeah.
may resonate, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. So you're gonna play a song for us, which is exciting. You don't have to play it live. We will add it in, my love.
Okay, good.
But so you can, but what song do you want to share with us?
Evergreen, because
Okay.
Evergreen is like everybody's favorite, but also Evergreen was like the song that really just pushed the needle for me. And Evergreen is a cover. It's originally a Yeba Smith song. but Evergreen is like the song that I go back to every once in a while, just as like a reminder. It's also a feel-good song. It's a healing song. So I think Evergreen would be very fitting to place in here.
I kissed my penny and I threw it in. I prayed I'd keep my soul. Went down to the river where the water bends. The only place I know. Listen. So, for me, you for me, standing at the water's edge. The Mississippi's overflowing the air. Hold your cup and bring meaning to my moments. So don't be you for me. No. So for me. This one so this my
Perfect. We love it. We love it. And how else can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Kennedy.Ryan, YouTube, Kennedy.Ryan. People say X. I don't be on Twitter like that, but if you want to add me on Twitter, it's also Kennedy.Ryan.
Spell your Ryon.
Thank you, because I always forget to do this, and I just think everybody's going to be able to spell it. Ryon. Ryan is Ryon. Same for Apple Music, SoundCloud, Spotify, DistroKid, Weezer. If you still play with Weezer, what else? Basically all platforms, Kennedy.Ryan, Ryon.
Beautiful. Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we start to wrap up?
I'd like to just say, if you're new here, new as in new to me, new to my artistry, I hope you stick around for the long run, because I plan to be doing this until I'm like 70 years old. And if you're an OG and you're here, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for your love and your affirmation. And then trying to, of course, thank you for having me on this podcast and giving me the space and giving me your time, because time is one of the most valuable things. And yeah, I'm just grateful, grateful to be here, grateful for the opportunity, grateful for the space, grateful to be able to tell my story.
Well, that piece, it's ultimately that people can say, "Oh, gratitude, it's overplayed or whatever, or feeling grateful." And it's like actually gratitude, it's a heart brain coherent state, and it's a state of well-being. Even those moments where you can touch into gratitude are actually deeply healing.
Again,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I'm
You're
very
welcome.
grateful. Be safe, and I'll talk to you again.
All right. Take good care.
Thank you for joining us. If you appreciated this episode, please like, rate, and review it and share with your friends. I'd really appreciate it. And if you'd like to stay connected, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Late Open Podcasts. As well as if you go to charnacassell.com and join my newsletter, you'll receive up and coming announcements about courses, as well as resources and discounts. This has been Late Open Podcast with your host, Charna Cassell. We all have different capacities, but I believe in our capacity to grow and change together. Until next time.